Hello everyone, my name is Pierre, I am the cooking musketeer, and today we talk about spices, especially two spice mixes that were actually used a lot in the medieval ages, powder fine and powder fort. Little disclaimer before we actually go further, I am extremely bad at editing, you'll see it by yourself, so I will try to limit it as much as possible, and we'll do like more of a kind of live show, more than, a very nice and neat. This will be done in the future, no worries. Now let's jump to the subject, which are spices. And yes, instead of doing a whole thing today about, spice routes and everything, you can find that a lot on the internet. I really want to see something that is, for me, maybe a misconception or something that, I don't know, not known a lot, is what was exactly the use of spices in the medieval ages? It is known that they were using a lot of it anyway, but yes, what is the real consumption? Is it like as big as we all think it was or not? So yeah, let's dig into it. So spice mixes. Spice mixes in the first place were used a lot anyway. I mean, even today you have, between curry, garam masala, Chinese spice, special mixes made by Michelin stars, cooks, YouTubers, your friends, your Uncle Bob, his special rub for brisket. I mean, spice mix is nothing new and everyone has his special one. It was exactly the same case in the medieval ages. Each cook had a base recipe, like the one that we are actually going to look into, so the powder fine and the powder fort, but they will have also their own take on them, and proportion might change and everything. The funny thing about these spice mixes is that you can actually find them in several different cookbooks from different regions of Europe, from Germany, Italy, England, France. So for the powder fine, we will use the one in Le Ménager de Paris, a French cookbook. And for the powder fort, we will use one from the Libero de Cucina, an Italian cookbook. It's just to mix it out, and we could have used actually both recipes from the same books, but it's better to diversify a little bit. And like I said, they are very similar anyway. So now let's dig into the proper preparation of the recipes. So here we have actually everything that we need for the recipe. So first, get yourself a nice mortar and pestle, obviously, and for the rest, we'll see this together. So let's start first with the powder fine. I already have some of them ready. Let's first read the recipe in French from Le Ménager de Paris, in Old French. So it will be like this. Prenez gingembre blanc, une once, quenelle triée, un quarteron, girofle et graines de chacun demi-quart d'once, et de sucre en pierre, un quarteron, et faites pouldre. So here, what we need will be cinnamon, ginger, cloves, maniguettes, which is here, I hope you can see it, there you go, is grain of paradise, or grain de paradis, and some sugar. The only problem with the sugar is, it's not that easy to find the type of sugar they were actually using at the time. It will be a block of pure sugar cane that they will grate. The problem is, like I said, it's a bit difficult to find. So in that case, we will use our simple, classical brown sugar. So let's start. I interpreted it a little bit like I could, because what they had for un quarteron and an ounce, this might actually change from the time and everything, and I couldn't find exactly how much it was. So I did it a little bit with what I had and what I could, and this is what I came up with. Oh, one sec, I just forgot only a spoon. I'll be back in. So there we go. We have our spoon, and let's start. So with that, we will need first some cinnamon. Of course, if you have cinnamon that is not grounded like mine, just do it more or less with this. So I think I will put like 2 nice teaspoons like this. There we go. Adding to that, we will need 1 of ginger. So I have my ginger here. Okay, I should use a different spoon. Okay, there we go, no need. So take also for ginger and cinnamon, where a lot used, this one should be a little bit sweet, so we should have more cinnamon than ginger. In that case, 1 nice spoon. Adding to that, you need cloves. This was, again, very difficult to figure out how much. I went for 4 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. And with that, so Grain of Paradise, it's a bit more complicated because the taste is very specific. Again, I think the cinnamon is the most important one for this. So 1 nice teaspoon should be enough. And the sugar, it has to be sweet. So, and they loved sweet stuff from what I read in the medieval ages. So let's put 2 nice teaspoons here. 1. Oh, damn. There we go. And 2. There we go. Now we have everything in there. The only thing that we need now is to mix and grind everything together. There we go. Once you are happy with the result, then just put it in a nice container. So in this one for us. There we go. Now let's clean the mortar and pestle, and we will actually go for the powder fort. So now that we cleaned everything, let's start and continue with the poudre fort or powder fort that we have from the Libero de Cucina. So it will be in Italian. So if you're Italian, I'm very, very sorry for my accent. I don't speak Italian, but I'll do my best. Spezie negre e forte per fore savore, toi mezzo quarto de garofali e do 11 de pevere, e toi arquanto pevere lungo, e de nozze moscate, e fa de tutte spezie. There we go, more or less. So we have here just cloves, black pepper, long black pepper, and nutmeg. There we go. So for this, we will use this long black pepper. Let me see if I can focus properly. Apparently not. Wait. There we go. So this looks like long black pepper. So this will be a pain to grind, but anyway, we'll start with this. I think we need at least 4 long ones for this recipe, and start with this by breaking them, if possible, like this. And now we can actually start by grinding those. Now that you grind them a little bit, add to this normal pepper, which I think will be also 1 nice fistful. I mean, yeah, let's see how much, like around this amount. Yep, 1 is gone, there we go. Instead also of using your normal black pepper, you can actually add cubeb that was also present at the time, which it looks more or less exactly like normal black pepper, but it has a small tail, and so it can give also another flavor, let's say, to the dish. And here, same thing, you grind it. Oh, by the way, before I forget, this, of course, cloves as same thing here. I think 4 is a nice amount, so like 3. And here a fourth one. There we go. And then, so grind this because these are actually the dry ingredients. There we go, nice and powdery. And for this, for the last thing that you need to add is nutmeg. And for this, I reckon, yes, some of it. Wait, where did I put? I think it was more or less like this amount that I put. I'll show it in my hand, like this amount, approximately. There we go. And then you mix it together. It's already grounded. So there we go. And it's done. So now we have everything we need, just chicken. This is, I think, will be the easiest way to actually for us try those spice mixes is by making, instead of, making one of the big medieval recipes, is to start making it with something that we can eat every day now that the spice mix is done. So maybe by putting some of them on chicken, we'll see how it goes. And if it goes well, then great. If not, then it will be better to use it as they were using it before. So yeah, let's see. Let's try it out anyway. So because this one is fresh and made, let's just try a little bit. On the left will be the powder fort. There we go. So it's a lot of pepper. So let's try not to overpower everything. There we go. Up. Let's put it around. There we go. See? Like this. Not to make it too much because, like I said, it should be eatable, edible. If it's not, it will be a shame and wasted chicken. So there we go. So I think we have. Yeah, let's put it. I had still a little bit in the spoon. There we go. Here a bit more. Here also a bit more. Yeah, and I also did small pieces, way easier to use than huge chunks. And also will be faster to cook. I mean, this is really for trying. There we go. So this is for the powder fort. And now the powder fine. So let's put some in my hands. Damn, it smells like Christmas. There we go. Let's hope the cinnamon will not be overpowering the whole thing. Let's put also a little bit on the side. There we go. There we go. Yeah, it smells a lot like cinnamon. It's really Christmas. And yes, don't worry. Anyway, all those spice mixes, we will use them also in medieval dishes. But here's really to actually have a first taste of them. There we go. So now let's continue to the video and talk about spices. And after that, we will actually have a tasting session. Okay, see you in a bit. Now that the recipe is finished, let's actually talk about spices in the medieval ages. So I have my notes with me, just in case. Like I said, I will try to make it, the best I can and without reading the notes, but yeah, at least without too much cuts. So let's get. Oh, no. Start all over again. Now that the recipe is finished, let's talk about spices in the medieval ages. And one of the biggest cliché that you will always hear about spices is that they overspiced all the dishes in the medieval ages to cover the fact that meat was rotten. Well, we'll see in a future episode, of course, the proper hygiene that they had in the medieval ages. But now, if you think about it, spices were extremely expensive. So not everyone could actually afford them. So not everyone could actually put them in the rotten meat. Then, when you were rich and a noble in the medieval ages, honestly, I really think they had their meat always fresh. So they were not doing it because they wanted to cover up the fact that it was rotten, but they were doing it because they wanted to, which is a very, very important distinction. And speaking of that, to answer the question that we had in the beginning, so what was the real consumption of those actually spices, I think 3 big periods are actually quite important to understand why they were doing this, and yeah, we'll see that in details. To start with, again, I'm not going to do a whole thing about spice trades and routes and everything, but what we need to know in the beginning is that the commerce of spice was huge since the antiquity. Okay, so it's nothing new here. Since antiquity, we had large spice routes that went from the east to Europe. This changed a lot because of one reason: the Muslim conquests of Egypt, the actual Egypt, and especially when in 642 they actually took the city and port of Alexandria. And from there, all trades, at least all direct routes that we had for spices, actually stopped completely. And that brings us to the year, around the year, at least 800, with Charlemagne, or Charles the Great, Charles the First, depending actually how you call them in your language. And because there was a huge lack of spices and also herbs, he decided to enact a decree that's made it, wait for that, okay. Oh shit, I forgot a lot of things. So because there were no direct spice routes from the east anymore, spices began to be extremely expensive. I mean, they were actually before extremely expensive because they come from far away, but now even more because of no more direct trade routes. And this brings us to the year, around the year at least 800, when Charles the Great, Charlemagne in French, enacted a decree that imposes all imperial properties and monasteries to grow at least 70 different spices and herbs. Now, think about it. For herbs, I understand, okay, no problem. They could have grown them, at least a lot of them, without that much difficulty, okay? The other thing is, if you think about all the spices, where they came from, climate-wise, it was completely different. So a lot, and when I mean a lot, it's like the majority of spices that they had before with trade routes, they could not even grow them in Europe. And this brings us to the last period that is also worth mentioning and also extremely important. And this brings us to the last period that actually was extremely important. It was the Crusades, and let me just have my notes. Yes, between 1096 and 1270. So pilgrims, when they came back from the Crusades, had in their bags, of course, a lot of spices. Why? Because it was extremely rare in Europe, and maybe a lot of them haven't even seen them. We also need to understand, when we actually think about that, is when they actually took all those spices back to Europe, there was a little bit of, how can I put it, it was like a dream thing for people. It was like exotic, extremely exotic product. It came way back from there. Like I said, a lot of people haven't even seen them, and there was like kind of a mythology also around them. And this brings us to the 13th and 14th century. During this period, at least the major cookbooks in the medieval ages were written. It was in the late medieval ages, by the way. This is a very important distinction, also, I think, to remember. Like I said earlier, also, those cookbooks were written around the same period, yes, but in at least four different regions for the main ones. So in France, you will have Le Ménagier de Paris and Le Viandier. In Italy, the Libero de Cucina. In England, of course, the form of curry. In Germany also, I mean the actual Germany, and also written in German, you had Das Buch or Ein Buch von Gute Spise. So, we have here 4 different regions, 4 different languages, and they have all those 4 cookbooks, or 5, but all those cookbooks had in common the extensive and massive use of spices. And when I say massive use, it's at least 3/4 of the recipes use several different spices, which is huge. What is also flabbergasting here is the diversity of spice used. Let's take an example. Nowadays, if you take any cookbook, the main spice that you will find almost everywhere, I think in 90% of all the recipes in cookbooks, you will find pepper. Pepper is extremely important. When you have meat, you have pepper. Pepper is huge. Back then, you don't have actually a main spice like pepper. What you have is a lot of different spices that were put in every dish. And also, if you think about it now, let's think that we have here the 14th century, okay, the late medieval ages, where in all those cookbooks you have a ton of spices, of different ones. But if you look a few centuries before, no, not at all. The spices were a little bit used, yes, but not in such quantities, and they were not that diverse either. Same thing if you look after around 16th century in Europe. We're still more or less in Europe, in case you were wondering. But if you look, in the 16th century, same thing. We have already the dominance of pepper in all the recipes that were actually written, but that's pretty much it. Spices like cinnamon, ginger, especially ginger, galangal, grain of paradise, and all that kind of things, or they disappeared, or they were used in very, very little quantity. So if you think about it now, that we are in the late medieval ages, you have all those cookbooks from all those regions that use spices massively. You will assume that in the Middle Ages, and this is actually how you have this whole conception that, yes, they spiced everything in the Middle Ages, is because of those books. So you will think, yeah, it is true. Look at the cookbooks, look at the material that we have. They should use it a lot. Problem is, it's not that simple at all. What we know is also in the medieval ages, spices were used in medicine. We will not go into details on how the medicine was at the time. This might be actually for a future episode. But to make it simple, spices were in general dry. What they were eating were in general humid or moist. And you make some kind of equilibrium between both and you are healthy. Just tiny anecdotes about this is the doctors at the time were actually tasting your urine to see if it was, too acidic, too sweet, and everything. And they already had some sort of, at least some form of diabetes, actually, in the medieval ages. That's actually we know about. And what was funny is that already doctors, when they tasted it and it was too sweet, they cut everything sweet for you. So they already knew, without knowing, what was diabetes and actually how to cure it in a way. You don't eat sweets. So yeah, kind of funny anecdote here. Still, we are here talking about the late medieval ages. Before that, we have a huge period. I mean, medieval ages are usually between 500 after Christ and 1500. So we have like 1000 years here, and all the cookbooks are actually from the late period. So just by looking at cookbooks, we cannot be certain on the fact that, yeah, they were eating spices all the time and they were eating them a lot. So we have to look at different sources, not only the cookbooks. For that, and after some research, I found out that if you take the commercial rates are also a very, very good source of information. So you'll know more or less the prices also of traded goods. By looking into that, and I found it's for Catalonia, so in actual Spain, and in Lyon, yes, in actual France. Very interesting information, actually. For example, nutmeg, galangal, or even cloves only appeared on those documents in 1252. The long black pepper that we used also appeared in 1271, so 13th century here. It's weird, isn't it? Because you cannot actually assume that during Middle Ages everyone was consuming spices like crazy, like we thought because of the books. But yeah, it was not existent, legally at least, before the 13th century. Of course, documentation changed. Maybe we didn't found actually also records from what was before. Maybe also they were not kept as good as they were after the 13th century. The only thing we know is that for legally, like this, it was not there. Same thing if you look, and let me just check my notes, in Lyon, that's some of those spices also only appeared in 1245. Again, showing that they were not there. So that's it. Also, what is, for me, I think very important to point out is that those cookbooks actually were written by cooks, okay? So, not everyone had a cook at the time. Only nobility, bourgeoisie, knights, they had cooks. But the common folks, no. So, it shows us also something very, very important, is that the rich, to make it easy, okay? The rich were consuming spices, not everyone. Also, by researching, we can see that, especially for knights, as an example, the amount of spices that were used for a normal meal, okay, a normal meal, were actually a normal quantity, a quantity that we will use, for example, when we actually use spices in our daily meals. So again, it's not showing that it is in huge quantities. Yes, the diversity is there because, like I said earlier, and like we saw also in the spice mixes, a lot of different spices were involved. And if not the spice mix were used, they will always use several different types of spices. Usually ginger, but also in combination of pepper, sugar being a spice, like I said earlier, cinnamon, etc., etc., grain de paradis, grain of paradise. So yeah, it's again showing us that the consumption was normal. What also needs to be pointed out is, and where we can figure that maybe they were consumed in huge quantities, if you actually look at Le Ménagier de Paris, especially, Le Ménager de Paris is not only a cookbook, it's also a book where you can actually see how some people were living at the time. And then you will see definitely that for big banquets, to impress actually the guests, the huge amount of spices were used. Okay, not in a normal day-to-day life. This can also be seen in a book of Charbonnier, where he describes how a little noble from Auvergne, in the middle of France, was living. And he actually describes for the wedding of his daughter, the huge banquets and feasts that they were having, and actually the amount of spice that he bought for this occasion. And this is also where you see the huge quantity that was bought. And yes, for this specific occasion, yes, way more spices were used than the usual normal amounts. By the way, in case I forgot to mention it in the video, you will have some links and for the sources down below in the description if you want to check it out by yourself. So this brings us to my conclusion for the use of spice. It's not that easy, okay? What we know and what was shown, and if we actually dig a little bit into different documentation of the time, yes, spices were used in huge amounts, but only at certain occasions, weddings, big banquets, holy days, and all that kind of things. But it was to impress people because spices were there to show more than the taste of the food. Of course, they had different tastes at the time, but more than the taste, it was also to show people your status. Like I said, spices were extremely, extremely expensive, so this is why it was important to show it. Secondly, yes, in the normal, Secondly, in the normal day-to-day life consumption, spices were used, from what I found out, the normal amounts. What I say the normal amounts is, again, the same amount that we will use today when we actually do something that includes spices. This may be a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. It's a bit difficult to tell. But there is no concrete proof that, yes, they were using that amount all the time, especially if you consider that at some point, one nutmeg, okay, we buy them there's 3 or 5 in a small packet, but one nutmeg at the time could cost almost as much as half a cow. So even for rich landlords or for normal landlords, nobles, it wasn't cheap. Now, what we will do with the spice mix that we prepared earlier, I will cook the chicken, and so I will not film it, so I hope you know how to cook a chicken. And we will actually go and try to eat it, and I will tell you how it actually tastes like. And here we are for the testing with Lena.
Hi.
There we go. So, it's just plain chicken. This is with the powder fortes, and this is with the fine. Okay, let's start with the fort one.
Mm-hmm.
Should be... Just tell me what you think.
Okay.
Very peppery, but this is normal.
Peppery without the burning, without the hotness. Not that much. A little bit.
Wow. I think it's actually delicious.
It is. It is. There's a difference from a different pepper, from the pepper we use now.
It's because of the long pepper. Actually, I use more long pepper than normal pepper.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm 50-50 actually. So, yeah, actually it's good. A bit too strong. I don't think it's good as a rub per se for chicken like this. I think it's better the way it is supposed to be used in sauces and everything.
Ah, yeah, definitely.
I think in a sauce,
I can imagine it in
this will
sauces.
be way better to use. But I see myself actually using it normally, like a normal spice mix.
It's very nice. sweet, on a sweeter side, I'd say.
Yeah.
A little.
True. Weird.
Okay, and what's this?
This is the pot de fin. So this should actually be Christmas in your mouth.
Okay.
I mean, it smells like Christmas when I
What does
actually...
powder fin mean in English? Please.
Fin. Fin is like... Fin.
Oh, okay. The cinnamon is nice on it.
I can almost... We should have first tasted this one. Because of the pepper. We don't...
Yeah.
But, actually, I only taste almost cinnamon, only.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe less cinnamon. I mean...
The proportions, though, you had are like your idea, or...
No.
It's
I tried to make the proportion the way it was more or less. Having exact proportions for nowadays measurements is a pain in the ass. It's a pain. YouTube.
Right.
This actually we can use it easily. But again, I mean the taste is good.
No, guys, I really like it. Actually, I like the idea of cinnamon on chicken. It's not overpowering. It's not cinnamon. It's all burned out because of the frying, I guess. But I like the little, like, not sweet aftertaste, but there's something... I don't know how to describe it. It's just good.
Yeah. In Morocco, they use actually a lot of cinnamon in with meat and everything. Yeah.
It's a good idea.
So
I'm gonna go do that too now.
Now this one is easier to use, I think. This one is good maybe for some gravies or some.
I can
anyway,
imagine it in gravies.
we will actually use it in. We'll use it in some medieval recipes, and we'll see about that.
I can totally even see the cinnamon mix and this one together.
Weird, but why not? In different proportions, so yeah. Instead of putting actually pepper, putting actually a little bit of powder fort and a bit of powder fin in the mix to make a sauce or a stew. I mean, this is actually, to be honest, something quite easy to use even in modern days. Oh, by the way, if the sound is weird, it's normal. We only have one mic. All right?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Thank you guys very much. If you like the video, please thumbs up and subscribe. It helps a lot. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.